Anybody uncomfortable yet? 60 seconds. Right there. 60 seconds is about how long it takes us to feel awkward if we're not doing something. That's a scary reality, isn't it? the discomfort and silence ceasing. This morning, Tony said we're kicking off just a short series talking to God. That's what prayer is. It's communion with the Lord. It's relationship with Him. But I thought before we talked about talking, maybe the best way to set us up to have more fruitful prayer lives would actually be to talk about making space in our lives for prayer. So I'm not going to tell you anything about prayer this morning. We're going to start a prayer series by not talking about prayer, because I think the big thing with prayer is less about how to and more about availability. It's more about time to. One of my favorite pastors is a man named Dallas Willard. You probably heard me share thoughts from him before, but he put it this way: hurry is the great spiritual enemy of our day. Hurry is the great enemy of spirituality in our day. I want you to think about this for a moment. Willard didn't identify a shifting culture as our greatest enemy, as a lot of us want to do. He didn't identify an agenda that was attempting to cancel Christian values and morals. He didn't identify even sin as our greatest enemy. Didn't identify a lack of biblical knowledge or a lack of ministries or the cultural assault on our children. None of that. He just said hurry, busyness, rushing is the greatest enemy of spirituality in our day. And so this morning, I really don't want to talk to you too much about prayer. What I hope we can walk away with is a picture and a conviction of a pace of life that can sustain somebody who prays. That's my hope for us this morning. I believe that a prayerful life is often supported by a prioritized life lived at a specified pace. If I can say it more simply, we won't be prayerful people until we start saying no to more things. And that's a hard truth to wrangle. And I know as I say that, maybe your mind, like my mind does, immediately goes to, well, Tana, that's just the way of life. That's just how our world is. That's just the culture we live in. That's our moment in time is busyness, and we're always going to be busy, and there's nothing we can do about it. And I have to hope that if we're thinking that, we are wrong. And I'll tell you why. It's because the call of Christianity is not to be like the world around us, is it? Jesus calls us to live in the world, but not to be of the world. And so naturally, the way we live our lives, the way we prioritize our time should look different than everybody else around us. And if it doesn't, then I think we have a problem. The book of Romans chapter 12, you've heard this before, but it reads, "Do not be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." Now, I could be wrong. But I think the pattern of a busy life is different than the life Jesus offers us. And so as we think about that and we model our lives around things, I think that God's will for believers, what is good and acceptable and perfect and pleasing to Him, is to live a rebelliously unhurried life in a hurried world. To live at a pace that makes everyone else around us think, man, you're really slow. Like, why aren't you as busy as I am? And I think that's the kind of life that can sustain a prayer life. And as we think about that, I'm struck by this idea that we don't really think we have issues with idolatry. Uh-oh. Bye, Zeke. Yeah. We love Zeke and Stephen and Mackenzie. Parenting's hard, isn't it? We can acknowledge that. I think we don't think about idolatry very often, right? We don't think we struggle with pagan idols or, that was an Old Testament thing. But I think if we were honest, if we really thought about what our world worships today, the idols that would the symbols we would be worshiping, right? I think there's a couple of them. One is a dollar sign. Our world worships money, right? The second is some sort of symbol of sexual promiscuity. Our world worships sexual sin. And the third, if we're being honest, would be some combination of a to-do list and a clock. It'd be a full calendar chocked full of accomplishment and getting things done. And so as we think about that, I think that's our idolatry we struggle with. Corrie ten Boom said it this way: if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. If the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. I shared some statistics with you about 3 or 4 years ago. Some of this may sound familiar to you, but I just want to invite you to maybe consider this. If the Bible won't convince you, maybe this will. In the year 2000, okay, so think back with me. It's scary to think that was 25 years ago. In the year 2000, the average attention span, human attention span, was 12 seconds. Okay, that's scary enough on its own. But since that time, I don't remember when this is 2020, so 20 years later, the average attention span dropped to 8 seconds. Now, that doesn't sound like much until you learn that a goldfish has a 9-second attention span. As Pastor Tony put it, if you were in a staring contest with a goldfish, you would lose. Like does that ring true with anybody? Like that's our soul state. I'll give you another example. The average iPhone user, okay, I've got one of these, all right, technology's not all bad, but the average iPhone user, this is 5 years ago, currently touches their phone, so I'm thinking this has gone up, 2,617 times a day. 2,617 times a day. I'll give you another example. I love this one. Before the invention of the light bulb, which allowed mankind to operate and work past dark. Think about this. Before electricity, when the world stopped, it stopped every night at whatever time the sun went down, right? Before the invention of the light bulb, the average person slept 11 hours a night. We did something wrong. 11 hours a night? Are you kidding me? I wouldn't even have to drink coffee anymore. We would discontinue the coffee bar. 11 hours a night. I love one pastor notes about this particular revelation. He writes, I used to read biographies of great men and women from history who got up to pray at 4 o'clock in the morning. St. Teresa of Avila, John Wesley, Charles Spurgeon. I would think, wow, they are way more serious about Jesus than I am. But then I realized after reading their biographies, they all went to bed at 7 o'clock. After 9 hours of sleep, what else is there to do but pray? The point he's making and the point I'm trying to make is that I really think prayer is not always a priorities issue, but most of the time it is. It's not that we don't want to pray. It's not that we don't see the value in it. Most of the time it's just we've given the space we should give to the Lord to other things. John Ortberg put it this way: for many of us, the great danger is not that we will renounce our faith, it is that we will become so distracted and rushed that we will settle for a mediocre version of it. So my question for us this morning is, are we settling for a mediocre prayer life just so we can have a few more things? Jesus said it this way in Matthew chapter 16. You'll remember, what will it profit a man if he gains what? The whole world, but loses his soul. So as we seek to be people of prayer, can I invite you, would you turn with me, if you've got a Bible, to Luke, the book of Luke, chapter 10. The book of Luke, chapter 10. If you didn't bring a Bible, we'll put it up on the screens for you, as long as everything's working the way it's supposed to be working. Sometimes it doesn't. In Luke chapter 10, we find Jesus in the middle of a transition between several stories. We know that this story we're about to read it's kind of interjected, so it feels like it's out of place. Why Luke chose to put it here, I don't know for certain, but in Luke chapter 10, verse 38, we read this short story. It's 5 verses long, and you'll probably recognize it, and that's okay. Verse 38, now as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha, Luke tells us, was distracted with much serving. She went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me. Do you catch the picture? You got 2 sisters, you've got a lazy one and a hardworking one. That's what Luke's telling us, right? No, keep reading. The Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you know it's bad when Jesus repeats your name. Martha, Martha. God's got to do that with me a lot. Tanner. You are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, some translations say, the better thing, which will not be taken away from her. Now, I want you to catch a couple things. There's 2 sides to this story, right? There's 2 sisters, 2 people, Mary and Martha. Okay, I don't know why parents do this and give their kids names with all the same first letters. It's hard enough without that. We find Mary and Martha, and I want you to look at Mary with me first, because there's a couple things going on here that we don't really catch when we just read the story. Mary is described as sitting at Jesus' feet. So Jesus is probably sitting down teaching, and Mary's sitting at his feet. Now, that's a biblical picture. Like, we think about that, and we're like, that, that's normal, right? For us, that would be really weird. Like, it would be very uncomfortable for me. Like, if I was sitting here and you guys came and sat down on the floor, I would be uncomfortable. Let's not do that, okay? But Mary sits at Jesus' feet because that was the posture of a learner at the time. It's the same thing as what we do in a classroom. We sit down at a desk, and it's a posture of learning. What's kind of odd in this context is that Mary's not really supposed to do this. That's because, at the time, Jewish people, they had a super kind of hard split between men and women. There were very, very culturally appropriate ways for men and women to interact. So Mary's not supposed to be sitting at Jesus' feet. She's actually, in the New Testament time, she was supposed to be off, kind of segregated, doing something else. That was a place reserved for men. And so it's interesting, because as we look at Mary, what we really see is we kind of see a rebel, right? Mary is doing not only what she's not supposed to do culturally, but then we find out Mary's supposed to be helping Martha. And so Mary's she's just breaking as many rules as she possibly can. It's I'm going to get out of doing the dishes. I'm going to, rebel against, cultural institutionalism. And then we get to Martha. And Martha gets a bad rap a lot of the time because, the point of this story. I don't even have to preach on this. You already get it. Jesus explained it really well. But Martha gets a bad rap because she's doing what she's actually supposed to be doing, right? And I think that's part of the irony of this story is Martha's doing what she's supposed to. At the time, she was supposed to be serving. She was supposed to be cleaning. She was supposed to be doing whatever she was supposed to do in the household to make things go the way that they were supposed to be. And so she's doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing. And so you've got Mary on one side doing what she's not supposed to do, and you have Martha on the other side doing what she is supposed to do. And then Jesus, typical of him, says, hey, great job over here, and you over here, we need to have a conversation. I'm going to double name you. And it's interesting when you look at this story, these couple short verses, when you look at them kind of with spiritual eyes on, what you see is that Martha is more concerned with what's expected of her than to the God who's available to her. Right? Martha's so concerned with what she's supposed to be getting done that she misses out on an opportunity with Jesus, the Son of God, sitting in her home teaching. And we look at that story, and it's like, well, duh. Like, come on, Martha, get your act together. This is super easy. And yet at the same time, how often are we Martha? How often are we in a moment where God is available to us, and we're so concerned and busy executing all of the tasks, doing all of the things, and so focused on the expectations we think that we have to meet? And I think we need to take a moment and think about what Jesus expects of us and what he doesn't expect of us. Let me give you a couple lists. I didn't bring a flow chart this morning. Jesus doesn't expect you to make 6 figures a year. If you do, that's awesome. Use your wealth generously. But Jesus doesn't expect that of you. Jesus doesn't expect you to work 60 hours a week. If you do and you love working and you can do it joyfully and it doesn't impact your family, that's awesome. Do it and share Jesus in that context. Jesus doesn't, I know I'm gonna rub some people the wrong way. Jesus doesn't expect you to keep your house completely spotless. Yeah, I know. I can't find it in the New Testament anywhere. Jesus doesn't expect you to maintain 1,500 virtual friendships. I got space for like 4. Some of you are doing the math right now. Jesus doesn't expect you to keep a perfect social calendar. You don't have to be at every event. My family doesn't go to any events. We have 4 kids. We don't want to ruin your event. I'm sorry. Jesus, parents, hang with me here. Jesus doesn't expect you to make sure that every one of your kids plays 4 sports, an instrument, and can speak 3 languages. Let me release you. Jesus doesn't expect you to know everything there is to know about every political issue and candidate. Jesus doesn't expect you to keep up with every fashion trend. Proof. I've had these boots for like 4 years. Jesus doesn't expect you to have seen every episode of the latest trending show. He doesn't expect you to capture every moment on photo and video. Jesus doesn't expect you, students, to have a perfect GPA. If your parents do, they're going to have to take that up with the Lord. We put a lot of expectations on ourselves that Jesus doesn't have for us. Those can all be good and healthy things in the appropriate place in our lives. But you start to, like, I'm kind of being facetious. You guys know me. I'm sarcastic. I can't help it. But you see, like, when you start to go through the list of all the things, and then it's like, well, it's pretty easy to see how prayer gets phased out of our lives. But there are some things Jesus does expect of us. Jesus does expect us to walk humbly and in righteousness. He does expect us, parents, to raise our children to know and follow him. He does expect us to care for people around us. He does expect us to share the gospel. He does expect us to spend time with him. He does expect that we'll live a life of balance and joy. I genuinely believe that's a call for Christians, that we would walk in the yoke of the Lord. He does expect us to take care of our families. You hear the balance here? Jesus does expect us to create time in our lives for brothers and sisters in Christ, for fellowship and friendship. Jesus does have some expectations for us, but most of the time, they're not the expectations we have for ourselves. And so we have to rewire our brains, like Romans tells us, and we have to be more concerned with what Christ expects of us than what the world around us, or maybe what we expect of ourselves. I'm gonna say something, and I'm not a good example of this. I want you to know that. I fail at this so regularly. But the issue in our spiritual lives is not efficiency. My goodness, do I love to try to do more things than I can actually do. Tony's sitting in the back nodding his head, laughing. I love to cram all the things in as much as I can. The issue is not efficiency. You will not get a better prayer life by getting more efficient. You will get a better prayer life by being more available. And so there's two sides to that. The first side is Mary, right? That we would want the better thing. How many, if you don't want to raise your hand, that's okay. I never raise my hand when pastors ask people to raise their hand, but if you're a hand raiser, okay. If you want a better prayer life, would you raise your hand? Okay, yeah, all right. Cool. Most people who are followers of Jesus say, I want to pray more. I'd like to have a more fruitful prayer time with the Lord. We've got that piece down, right? In our hearts, right? We want that. That's the desire of our hearts. That's part one. That's Mary. Are we available for life with Jesus? This is the harder part. This is Martha. And I'm going to say this, and I don't mean it grotesquely, but sometimes we have to take an axe to the spiritual Martha in our lives. We have to put to death the things that are keeping us from Christ. And so I want to do something that is a little just practical. If you got one of these, maybe you don't have one of these. If you don't have one of these, you're a better person than I am. I'm just going to tell you that, all right? But if you have one of these and you have your calendar on your phone, or you've got your calendar in your head, would you get this out right now? If you don't have your calendar on your phone, just ignore me, okay? Pay attention, but ignore the phone thing, okay? I'm gonna give you a moment to Mary and Martha your phone, all right? And what I invite you to do is this. It takes 21 days to build a habit. Most of you have heard that before. There's some brain science thing I don't understand or know. 21 days to build a habit. Let's just go with that. We'll pretend that's factually true, okay? Could you find 21 days? Maybe you need a moment to hop on the train. Maybe you need a spiritual train hopping moment right now to get back into a regular time of prayer and time in the Word. Is there a time in your day when you have 10 minutes that you can put in your phone right now for the next 21 days to remind yourself to spend 10 minutes with God? I'm going to give you space to think about it. Literally look at your calendar. Is there a window in your day? You have 10 minutes to spend time with God. Now, that's Mary. Here's the Martha moment. Is there one thing on your calendar you need to kill? Is there something in your calendar that is keeping you busier than you need to be, that you need to say no to so that you can say yes to Jesus more often? I don't know what that thing is. Maybe it's not. Maybe you've got a perfectly balanced life. Can you run a seminar next week? Because I'd like to attend it. But I just want to give you space for a few minutes to look at your calendar. Do you have 10 minutes somewhere in your day? And is there one thing you need to get rid of? And as we do that, I'm gonna invite our worship team to come back up. We're gonna sing again in a moment and finish, but just take a couple minutes as they come and you think about your schedule. I want to read this story one more time and cement it in your mind and your heart, if that's okay. Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. She went up to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her to help me." How many times have we in righteousness thought, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. The Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. I'm not a big legalism person. I don't think you have to be at church every single Sunday. I don't think you can never miss a prayer time or never miss a Bible reading session that you're supposed to have. Lord knows I've missed more than my fair share. But I think there's something in our hearts that has to shift from thinking, how often can I miss this thing, to how often do I want to miss it? Right? Isn't that the question we're asking that Mary asked when she sat at Jesus' feet? This is what I want more than anything else, is to be right here. As we think about cultivating a prayer life, we do have to say no to things, right? Maybe you need to kill that extra hour of TV at night so you could get up a little earlier. Or maybe you're a night owl and you need to take that extra hour of TV and spend 10 minutes talking to God. So this is just an opportunity. This is just a chance. We have these all the time. I love that picture of there's a train going by you right now and you got the opportunity to jump on it, but you're going to have to run a little bit to catch up. So we're gonna sing together and just think. I think this is a new song, isn't it, Brandon? And the words are right where we are. I rest in God and God alone. And so as we sing together and we think about resting in God, could we turn our hearts and minds toward a spiritual life that prioritizes time with God, and even when it's hard, sometimes says no to things